Hi folks, this is Rose from In Rose's Garden. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a dark and gloomy day here today, but we're going to work on a necklace that I designed using the Amethyst Elegance bargain bead box, which was February's. So I have got it all designed. I've got all the pieces pulled out. Now we just got to put it together. So let's turn down and do that. Okay, in this baggie is the pieces that I got together to make this. I have a pile of spacers here, some ball head pins. These are going to be for the dangles, and I will show you what I mean in a moment. I have a bail for holding the pendant on, a couple of small head pins for another dangle in the main part, and some couple of large oval jump rings and some crimp beads, or tubes I should say. They're 2x2 crimp tubes. So let's pull this stuff out. First I'm going to take this out. This is going to be for our little dangles that are going to go on our main piece. So let's put these aside for a second and let's get these made. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take and put this one in the middle here, and then we're going to make little dangles with these, and we're going to have 3 of them, one in the middle, and these 2 that are going to be on this side are going to be 2 holes up from the main one, which is going to be quite similar to the others, but it's going to have one more little bead, and that's going to be up here at the top, this little bicone. Now we're also going to put some spacers in here so that, well, because I have a thing for spacers. And these are not the spacers I want for that. We will, I need to get those spacers out. So we're going to take this smaller head pin. I use ball head pins if I can, because I like the extra little bit of oomph that it adds. Now you want to always check, because see, like that, sometimes the bead will go right through your ball head, and in that case we're going to add a spacer at the bottom of that one also. A couple of little tiny spacers out. Well, I've got more than a couple. I put a little pile here, and we'll put one on the bottom of this, and then this bead will go onto it. We don't want to make it too horribly long because we don't want it to bash into here when we bring it around. So just bend that over, because that's the way we're going to finish that one up. Get the bigger ball head pins, and we're going to just put these on. So your head pins are a little bit bent. Just run your fingers up them like so, and once they warm and your finger pushes that pressure in, it will take most of that bend out. And if you need it more out, you can always use your nylon jaw pliers on it. But I find that generally I can get enough of the bend out with my fingers. Now, gladly those little amethysts fit on here because they are very tiny. And I was a little worried about whether the hole would go through the, whether the head pin would go through the hole, but it did all right. Now you've got two choices here. You can wrap these directly onto your pendant piece, which is probably what I will do, or you can jump ring them. But since this is a bigger piece here, we're going to want a larger ring. So rather than using the smallest of my bell making pliers like I normally do, I'm going to go up to this next size. So we'll go up and around, drop this, bring her around. Now, if you need to, leave a gap here, because this is going to take a little finagling with that fat of a base wire, base piece here. So we want it in this hole here. And as I say, it's going to take a little bit of work. There we go, we got her. There we go. Once we have that on, we want to take this where the wires come together here, get our one of our pair of pliers right there at that spot where they do. And then turn them around. I like to work with my other hand and wrap it on. Now we'll cut that. Actually, it needs to come around just a little bit more so that this is closer to the back. We'll cut it and carefully tuck this in. Now I have noticed that this top crystal is drilled a little funky, and so it's, see there? I'm actually debating changing that crystal. I don't like that. Because it looks very odd. But if I can get it to roll around to the front like this, so it's not I thought maybe it was chipped, but it is not. It is cut weird. So anyway, there's our first dangle on. If you need to straighten your wire, just take it and give it a little squeeze up here. I think that's pretty good. And then we will go on to our side pieces, doing exactly the same thing with the bigger hole, or I should say the bigger loop. Wrap it, bring it around, drop, bring her into lollipop shape, leaving a big gap for it to go through the pendant piece. Oops, don't knock things over, Rose. And then we'll do the same with this one here. Well, actually, we'll do the same with the loose bead there too. There we go. While we're at it, we'll get that one on. Okay, so then we just do these side ones like we did this one. I really don't like that. I may have to change that bead, which is a pity because I'd have to cut that loose. But we'll see. So we're going to go up into the second one for this one. Work her in through the gap you left. There we go. So then we do exactly the same. We get hold of this where the wires come together with our pliers. We're going to be pushing this one wire back up into place some as we do this. So then we take hold here, switch hands. Well, you don't have to switch hands. I just like to switch hands. Get our other second pair of pliers and wrap. Okay, so now we want to trim this off. And tuck in the wire. Now this top bead now is an amethyst, so it won't break as easily as the glass would, but it will still break, so still be careful. And tuck that baby in. This wire looks a little crooked, so I straightened that there. And there is our second dangle in place. Now we just need number 3 in here. And I'm going to open this up a little bit wider since it was giving me problems going through on the other side. And again, we're going to go up 2. And then work our pendant piece in. See, that was much smoother that time. So now again, we're going to bring those wires together, just like so. Switch hands. Now you'll notice I'm bending this wire, the one that's going to wrap around, up a little bit. And that's so it doesn't go sliding downwards when we put our wrap on. And she's trying to escape from me here, so we have to get a better hold on her. And let's take a look at that and see if we can straighten that some. Okay, this needs to go this way just a hair's breadth. Then we need to tuck this wire in. And there we are. Now I really am not liking that miscut bead there. So even though I don't like the thought of cutting that baby loose, I just may do so because it is looking a little bit off to me. So I've decided that this definitely is not pleasing me with this bad bead in here. So I am cutting it loose, and I'm going to cut it right here, and it won't matter if the bead breaks now because I'm going to take it out anyway. So There we go. Now it is now I did break it, but you can see how when it was drilled, well, maybe you can't, but because it's so tiny, but it came out the side some instead of straight across. That rarely happens in your beads, but it does happen occasionally. So we'll get rid of, and we'll redo this just like we did originally with the Now, as you can see, that hole appears to be in the proper spot. So that's good. This wire, though, is a bit crooked, it looks like. So let's get her straightened out. And we're going to make our loop. Put this baby on there, up and around and over and with the big gap here. Well, I didn't bring it all around enough. There we go. Now we'll put this back on here. The pliers in to grab our wires and bring them together. This wire needs to be pulled up some. It is down too far. So get hold of the end of where the loop should be at and push it upwards. There we go. Hold her. Get the second pair of pliers and wrap our and now we cut this in the back. And carefully tuck it in so we don't break this bead. And there, now that looks much better without the womped up crystal at the top. I like that much better. So now we need to put in this little guy. Now he's going to be a little tricky because he's going to be in the middle, which leaves you no working space. So let's just get him in this little hole. Come on, you. He went in quite easily. And I think he's going to fit in there perfectly. So now what we need to do is get in here and get our wires pulled together. And wrap them up. We'll trim that little excess off here. Now this is going to be tricky because it's gotten into a little, it's come really close to the bead, so we want to get in there close as possible. There we go. And then tuck it in. Let's see if we needed to straighten that wire some. No, it looks pretty good. So there's our pendant portion done of our necklace. To hook the pendant to the bail that I have out. Let's just use a jump ring, go through the upper hole of our pendant and then onto the loop of our bail. Now I'm using a smaller jump ring, so that's why this is being a little tricky with me. If you wanted to use a bigger one, you could. I just like as small a one as possible so that it doesn't have a big signature in the way. So there is our pendant with the bail. And isn't that going to be pretty? Okay, now we need to set out our beaded portions. This is going to be 2 strands, and we'll need to get out our soft flex wire and start beading her up. Now I'll probably fast forward through a lot of this because I don't want to take up all your time as I bead this up. So let's get some wire out and we'll get her started. So I have some amethyst soft flex out, and what we're going to do is we're going to make 2 strands and we're going to hook them to these. Because we're going to use the 2 strands, we're not going to hook to the middle one, we're going to hook to the 2 sides of the middle. So what we're going to do is, in effect, we're going to take our soft flex wire and we're going to hook it here and then over here so that we have separation of our strands. So let's get our strands all worked out here. Then we'll get to beading them. So let's put our pendant aside so she's not in our way until we get to the point where we have to put her on. We have our 2 beads like this. Those are our spacers. And we're going to start the one side with 3 little crystals. And then we will use a coin bead. Well, first we're going to put in a spacer, then a coin bead, another spacer, 3 of the, if I can find where I've got them, 3 of these rounds. I haven't decided if I'm going to put spacers between each one of those. I may. A spacer here for sure. Then another coin. Three rondelles, of which I will put spacers between these. Spacer here. Another coin. Three more rounds. Oops. Spacer here. A coin, and then some of these. Oops, forgot our spacer again, didn't we? Okay, and this is where our pendant will hook onto, right here. And we'll go up the other side the same way. Oops, I think I forgot a bead in here. In fact, I know I forgot a bead in here. Let's see, how do we have it designed? Oh, we forgot 2 whole spacers of things here. this is supposed to be in here. Then the coin. Three of these. And then we're back down to these. Almost seriously messed up there, didn't I? Okay. Because these are so tiny, I'm thinking maybe instead of using these here by the little cubes, I'm going to use one of these little guys we used on our pieces down there. So let's see if I've got this the way I wanted it. Coin, 3 rounds. Coin, 3 rondelles. Coin, big bead, coin, 3 rondelles. The 3 and the... Yeah, this is the way it's going to look coming to where it's bailed. So let's get string. We'll string this half up, and in the meantime I'll decide if I'm going to put anything between these. I may just put some of these tiny ones in between these beads here. I do like a spacer. Sorry, it's just me. So let's get the wire cut, and we will start swinging, doing this side, get the pendant in, and then do the other side. Then we'll set up the top bar and work on it. So of course the first thing we want to do is get out our wire. But because I'm not sure how much I'm going to need, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work off the spool to do this half. And then once this half is done, I can measure the other side out and know how much we will need. So let's get these going. Put these 3 on here. I try to work off the spool whenever possible. Sorry for bumping the camera there. Because then I find I don't use either too little wire or too much. And let's face it, it's very easy to do that. I don't mind having a little extra wire. I don't want a ton of extra wire though. So I try to work off the spool whenever possible. Now this is going to have chain running up the back if you were wondering about the length. And, oops, I dropped my bead. Where'd she go? There she is. So we can decide on the length after we get that, the pieces on the side done. As you can see, I have a lot more wire than I need here, probably about what I want to finish it up. Actually, more than I need. So let's get this slid down so that it's, when I come it together here, I'm going to want like a couple of inches for doing my crimping. I don't want to have too small of a crimping space, because if you do, it's really hard to get that crimp done in there or get it turned and into your crimp tube. I like at least an inch or two of space to do that with. So we still can keep bringing her down. Oops, don't want to do that. In case you're wondering, this is a bead stopper. Keeps your beads from flying all over the place when you're working on stuff. So I think we can cut it about right here. And I will measure it for you folks so you can see how long it is. But in order to do that, I'm going to want a bead stopper on the other side so I don't drop the beads off while I'm doing it. So you can see that's what the one side's going to look like. We're going to slide on our okay, so this wire is about 15 inches. So now we have a choice. We can crimp it onto our piece here right now, or we can put the pendant on and start up the other side and crimp them both at the same time. But you know, since we're done with the one side, and as you can see, this is our middle piece, we're going to, I think I will crimp this one side before we go on. Then I don't have to worry about the beads coming off. So we get a crimp tube, slide it onto our wire, and then through the second hole, as I said, pull her around, slide her up on there. Okay, so we slide our crimp tube up and on. Come on, baby. There we go. Because I had her too close. Decide on how much of a loop you want. I want it to be able to move, so I'm going to leave it about there. Make sure your wires are not crossed. That one is, so we'll get it fixed. And I'm going to use my magical crimpers. They've got a divot in it. You put your bead right in the center of it and push down. And then you continue, turn it and continue to do that until your bead no longer will squish. Then give it the tug test and see if your little beads will go through the wire twice. If they don't, we're going to have to trim your wire right there at your crimp. If they will, that gives you a little bit of space before you have to cut. But it looks like, even though this is starting, it's very tight, so I'm going to cut it off right here at the edge of my crimp tube by pulling her up really close and then sliding it in. So that has this side done. Now we're going to put our pendant on here. I'm just going to slide her onto here. And she won't go over those beads. So I'm going to take them back off. Put our pendant on here. But before I put our pendant on here, what I'm going to do is get a couple of tiny seed beads to put in here so that the bale can sit on those seed beads. So I have some seed beads right here. So we'll get, oh, I'd guess 3 or 4 to go under here, as these are number 11s, tiny babies. So we'll put the seed beads on, thinking it needs at least 4, possibly 5. I will put on 5. If they come out the other side, then we will just take off what we don't need. There we go. As you can see, that 5th one does come out, so we'll take that off. And put on the bicone again so that we have the bicone coming off the either side. And I just noticed that I put the pendant on backwards to our edge piece here. So we will need to take that bicone back off, turn our pendant around. Something to always watch for when you're working on something. Make sure all of your components are going the proper direction. And always check, 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 because you never can tell when you might have made a little error like that. So there we go. We'll put our bead back on here. There we go, how it's going to look. And we'll start stringing up this other side. So we need to start with one of these little tiny guys here. And then a coin. And then 3 of the glass. And we're going to just follow the pattern that we used on the other side. Now we need to compare the sides to make sure you have them the same, didn't miss any beads. Looks like. And it looks like we're good. So the next thing, of course, is to crimp it onto this other piece over here. So we'll get another crimp tube out and hook it up onto that side. Now before you actually crimp it, give it another gander, make sure everything looks good. Make sure you've got about the same space on this loop as you do on this other one over here, which we do. And that's looking good. So take your crimping pliers and go in and crimp this baby off. Give her the tug test. Everything feels good, so we're going to cut this little extra wire right here at the tip. So there is the first half of our necklace done. Now we just need to start stringing the other side. So we're going to do it exactly the same way I just did this one, with setting out the beads first, and then we're going to work it off of the spool until we get one half. Well, actually, this one we could do the whole thing because there is no pendant in the middle of this one, so we could do the whole thing and then hook it up. So maybe that's what we will do. So let's put this aside till we get the other strand done. So for the other strand, what we want to do is we want one of these little round ones, a rondelle with a spacer, of course, one of the small spacers because we're going down to the little bicones right here, and then another little spacer. Then we're going to one of these guys. So instead of this tiny spacer, I think this time we are going to use the bigger one because we're going to use one of these big beads here. Then we'll have 3 more of the little bicones. A rondelle. Big agate, three little of the little round ones with 2 spacers in there. Oops, that's 3. Another big agate. Another rondelle. Three of the little guys. One of these. Now this is going to be our middle. So since the rest of it's going to be identical, we're going to start by stringing this much up, and then well actually we could string the whole thing. So let's just get some wire loose here. Not loose as in taken off. We're going to work off the spool, but we need to have some so that we can work off the spool. So we'll pull some out. I like to put a bead stopper right here on this end so it doesn't drop into the spool as I'm working on it. But this is going to be our center portion, so we're going to do this and then we'll just copy it around to the other side exactly the same. Now I did just notice that this one here, I had a little one on this other side, so we're going to switch that. This one hole feels like it might be a little clogged up, so we'll switch it out for another one. I'll clean that hole out later. In case you're wondering, these are antiqued, so they have a coating on them that's been sort of then rubbed back off to give them that antique look. And sometimes the stuff that they use to antique it gets into the holes. And when that happens, you have to take your bead reamer or your awl and just push on it till it releases. See, I used this big one again, which I shouldn't have. And it's not hard. It's usually pretty easy to clean out the hole, but of course I'm not going to do it right this second. And here we are at the halfway mark of our upper strand. What do you think? You like that? I think it's sort of pretty. So okay, now we're going to go back and just reverse this, do the whole thing over on the other side again. And of course, as you do it, you do want to watch your pattern. Make sure you're not going way wonky. Remember how I said that other bead, it was drilled a little crooked? And if you can see this, this one is the same way. Can you see the top little bit there where the drill is coming out slightly sideways to the top instead of at the top? So we don't want this one. We're going to put this one away, and I'll probably need to get another one, but that's fine. We can do that. Oh, this one's the same way. Okay. And here's where I need to go get that extra bead. Let's check to see everything's kosher up till that point. Yep, and then we will have these two at the end with this bead and this one. Okay, we've got another one of these babies out, so we can finish up what we were doing here. So now our middle strand is, our upper strand I should say, is finished. I'm going to cut the wire right here. And we are done with this. Now I did notice that when I did my original pattern, I forgot to put a few beads in to the original one from this one, but that's all right. We can, unless Unless it's too long, then it's fine. Now this one is the one with the little piece that had the little extra goober in it. Just take your awl or your bead reamer, just go like that, and it knock that little piece of black stuff out. That was what was clogging the hole up. So now that's fixed. But let's get our necklace back and see if we need to shorten this strand up, since I accidentally didn't. No, it's still going to be great. Look at that. Isn't that going to be a great length? So let's get this one crimped onto here, and then we will get our chain and decide how long we need to make it. So we'll just undo one side, get a crimp tube, and go through this one, which is the opposite side of the middle. Slide her on through the wire up to about where you want it. Compare it to its buddy over there. That looks good. So hold that so it's not crossed. And then get our crimping pliers out. Get that in the middle and squish. And just go around till it does not squish anymore. And do the tug test. Okay. Then I'm going to trim this down, but I'm pretty sure that this one will go in through the extra beads. So let's slide our beads over here. See, they went right on, so that was great. And that's going to work really nicely there. And this is, like I say, the middle, so it's going to be up about right here. And then this will hook on this side. So let's get that other side hooked on, and then we just have to decide on the chain length. So we'll take this out, get the crimp bead. Actually, I guess I'm sort of glad we missed those beads, because otherwise it would have been quite a bit higher on this second side than it is now. So through the crimp tube, and let it go through some of these beads if it will do so. So, and then pull her up. Make sure that she's up there. Oh yeah, that's gonna look really nice. So then we just make sure this is all, and then we got it twisted good, that it's got about the same length. Yep. And then let's get this into our crimp tube and squish and turn and squish and turn till it doesn't do so anymore. Then we're going to do our tug test. That's good, and cut this extra wire off. Come on, baby, go in there. Make sure you got only the wire you want to cut. And there is our necklace put together. Now we just need to decide the length and put the chain and get the chain cut and for it, and put on its clasp, and it's going to be done. Here's our chain from our kit, so we will use that. And get the other odds and ends things put away here so they're not in our way, and get going on this. Got some crimps, not some crimps, but some jump rings out to hook our chain on. And then we need to, like I say, we need to decide how long we want this to be. Now, as for the chain, we can do this one of two ways. We can hook it on one side and bring it around to the length we want it to be, or we can figure out the length we want it to be and just cut it right then and there. So when I'm doing a pretty like this, I like it to be at least, I like the decorated sides to be at my collarbones. So I need to decide to figure out how long of the chain needs to be so it's going to get to my collarbone. So we will measure that out. Getting it out from underneath my hair because that adds a lot of extra. So we want about 12 inches to go around my neck. So we'll cut two 6-inch pieces. And actually, you know what? I probably don't want two 6-inch pieces because I'm going to have clasp. So if we want 12, maybe we'll do 5.5-inch pieces. So let's get our ruler out. And we'll get our chain and we'll cut 5.5 inches. So we're going to cut right here. This link off. Then I'm going to get my reamer and hook the chain on one side and then hook the other chain up to it, and then we can measure it this way so that we know that we have the same length. So I want to take it off right here. Now they're perfectly fine. So those two pieces are ready to be hooked on. The rest of our chain up, and then we will take our jump rings and hook the two pieces of chain up to the two end pieces here, and get this baby going. So we need the pliers to open up our jump ring. I use an oval jump ring so that the break is here on the side and the weight distributes to the bottom and the top, and that way you don't have to worry about things sliding through the gap so much. Okay, one side done. And the other side is just as easy. We'll just plop her on there. Open up our jump ring through the loop on our piece and then through the end of our chain. And piece number 2 is done. Now the next thing we have to decide is what kind of clasp we want to use. There's lobsters, there's toggles, there's magnetic. I personally like a magnetic clasp, especially for those folks who have problems with their hands. A magnetic clasp is a great way to go. So let's get us out a magnetic clasp and we will get it hooked on. Okay, so I've got us this little magnetic clasp. It looks small, but it's very strong. And we will hook that onto either side of our chain, and then our necklace will be done. So let's give that a twist open, find one end of our chain, put it through and then hook it to one side of our magnetic clasp. Tighten her up. Okay. Now we'll get the other side. Opener. On. Come on. That's one thing about the magnetic clasp, they really like the chain. So then and my pliers. Close that up. Make sure she's well closed because this magnetic clasp is strong. And we're done. There we go. That's what she looks like. So pretty. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm glad I missed those few beads in here because it would have definitely made the bottom strand, I think, too long because it would have had quite a gap between them. Because that would have been like 4 beads here. So there we are. There's our necklace. Let's turn up and I will show it to you again. Okie doke, there is our necklace. Isn't that pretty? Sort of swing it in front of me here so that maybe you can see it better. So I think that turned out really nicely. I think I really like this one. So anyway, this has been Rose for In Rose's Garden, working with my February bargain bead box, Amethyst Elegance. And I agree, this is an elegant necklace. It really turned out gorgeous, and I hope you liked it as much as I did. There you go. Bye-bye.